Howdy, I'm Avron, and today I'm going to let you in on a little bit of our plans for the Wild Frontier server. First of all, as you may have guessed, we want to continue the development of the server, but with some fundamental changes in the concept. Though we want to stay true to the ideas of a roleplay server settled in the frontier of America during the years from 1870 to 1880. As you see, our concept is based on three main pillars: roleplay, free build, and economy. In the vision we have, players will be able to create their own faction, and if they're a pioneer, level it up step by step from a simple ranch consisting of only stables, sheds, and the ranger's house to a thriving town full of hotels, saloons, and gambling halls, or as a Native American, in a TP faction roaming our world and setting up camp every month on a different location in our 10,000 by 10,000 large map. This map is a visual overhaul of a Minecraft map available on the internet. With a size of 10,000 by 10,000, it provides enough space for the vastness of the West. The place is created by the server team for quest spawns and looting, but also for your own settlements in the, depending on your choice of ethnic group, new or old land. From the deserts found in southern New Mexico, over the rocky cliffs of the Rocky Mountains, and the cool boreal forests of Colorado and Wyoming, to the prairies of Nebraska and Kansas, it offers everything across the region western of the Missouri River. Players will be able to actively shape the map by creating factions, which leads to the next point. As mentioned in the introduction, players will be able to create their own faction, help shape the Old West, and either level up a ranch to a thriving town or fort, carve their pueblo into the red stone of the Great Plateau, or wander the huge plains as a prairie Native American in search of new hunting grounds. The faction advancement of the pioneers will depend on the acquired acres of land, chunks, and the number of active faction members. Leveling a faction up allows you to extend building-wise. As mentioned earlier, a ranch may not be able to build huge saloons and railroads, but it gives you the ability to unlock more and more faction upgrades, which are special buildings where players with the right talent, more on that later, can craft several special items. For example, the blacksmith can craft cavalry swords, or the saloon, where the best whiskey in all the West can be brewed and the finest brandy distilled. The upgrades for the Native Americans include, for example, the Medicine Man, with which potions can be made that, it is said, give magical powers, or a fireplace where the elders can tell of valuable treasures and mysterious monsters in the evening. Although Wild Frontier will be a roleplay server with some PvP elements, we won't exclude this aspect of the base game Minecraft. Players can play raiding outlaws or bounty hunters, but all of this has to happen in the context of roleplay. Before going into PvP with someone, you should always give them the possibility to react and roleplay, as an example, giving all of the gold they carry on them. On the other hand, factions have the possibility to declare war on each other and fight them to attrition or decide them in a big battlefield. As I mentioned, this must be done for a good roleplay-based reason, reviewed by the team if necessary. To clarify this, I'd like to give you an example. In this example, Pioneer Faction A wants to lay a railroad track to Faction B, but it goes through Faction C's land. So Faction A asks if they can put their railroad track through Faction C's land, and Faction C says no. As the chief of Faction B does not allow it because he thinks that railroads on his territory would undermine his authority, Faction A declares war on him, announcing the war goal to reach the permission to lay those tracks, and the conflict begins. Whereupon Faction B also provides conditions to fulfill in case of defeat of the enemy. The war continues until one of the two factions calls for a major decisive battle that will determine the outcome of the war, or a diplomatic solution is made. Of course, a winner and a loser will emerge from this battle, where the latter will have to submit to the demands made at the beginning of the war. Afterwards, a peace treaty will also be signed, forbidding an immediate redeclaration of war. The last major system we want to introduce to you today is the skill system. Depending on the ethnicity, players will be able to learn a certain number of talents or skills from an NPC or certain quests, through which players can, as a reference, operate the faction upgrades of the blacksmith and the medicine man mentioned before. Normally, skills can be used to produce custom items through tools and faction upgrades, but there are also talents that make it easier for you to farm and mine certain materials and resources. Our skill system is based on the motto, learn by doing, and depending on the amount of crafted items you already have, you will always unlock new items that you can produce. For example, with the cooking skill, you can't do much more than cook a measly bean stew or baked potato in the very beginning, and it's going to take a lot more of those baked potatoes and bean stews till you're able to conjure up the juiciest steak of the prairie. With all of this skills and the limitations of items a pioneer or Native American can possibly craft, we intended that we can boost our economy and make trade between factions, players, and nations more attractive. That's it again for our video about giving you a brief overview of our concept and plans. Please note that many of these concepts are not fully developed and therefore work in progress and are changeable at any time. The development of many of the required plugins is not even in its infancy, and there isn't much we can build on yet. In the next days, we will give you more detailed information about a possible application to the team in the areas of building, lore, and resource pack, as well as give you the opportunity to ask your questions in the Q&A channel on the Discord. We sincerely invite you to join, and we hope we see you all there.